Thank you for the warm introduction. And with 133 days until the largest sporting event in American history, in world history, it's tough to believe that we are this close. On behalf of the 45th and 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, it is an honor to be here to speak with you as we prepare to host the FIFA World Cup. 500 million ticket requests already out there for the World Cup. That's as of a couple weeks ago, I think, showing the incredible demand that is being signaled for this incredible event. And when you think of the amount of people that watch the FIFA draw alone, over 800 million, and you compare that to what we're expecting for the Super Bowl, about 150 million this next week here, it makes you realize just how big this World Cup is. It is the whole world that is going to be watching this. 1.6 billion people watched the final last time. I think in looking at the demand, we're going to have over 2 billion people watching the final. FIFA will talk to you more about this, but it sounds like over 10 billion views throughout the tournament just on their broadcasts alone. Pretty amazing. This tournament arrives, as you know, at an extraordinary moment in our nation's history, our 250th anniversary of our independence. And the fact that there's a game on July 4th in Philadelphia is truly, truly special. When President Trump established the White House Task Force last year, he set forth a clear mission: make this the greatest sporting event in history. Make it safe, make it secure, and at the same time, let's make it a safe and welcoming experience for fans and visitors and American citizens alike. Delivering a well-executed and successful World Cup is a massive effort. It represents the largest coordinated interagency sports operation ever undertaken. I was actually just talking to our Super Bowl federal coordination team today, and in hearing what they are doing for the Super Bowl and envisioning the fact that we're going to have to do this 78 times over 39 days, it hit home as it is 133 days away. So for the first time ever, we are, along with Canada and Mexico, hosting an all-of-continent tournament. The scope of this World Cup is truly amazing. 104 games, more games than ever, more teams, 48 teams, more host cities, 16 host cities, and more host countries, 3, than the World Cup, or really any other sporting event, has ever assembled. That requires incredible coordination that the task force is spearheading with over 30 federal departments and agencies, 11 U.S. host cities, state and local governments, FIFA, of course, and our other partners, as well as Canada and Mexico. The task force has actively mobilized all the players to support tourism, build small business benefits, and ensure smooth travel. Tough enough when you think of what it takes as a New Yorker to get from JFK to MetLife Stadium and then try to do that going down to Philadelphia and all the different tickets that you need to go from the LIRR to Penn Station, New Jersey Transit, then Amtrak, and then start that over in Philadelphia. Then you add language barriers on top of it, and you realize that even somebody who's learning English over 40 years can find it very complicated. But this signals to the world that the United States is not just the most welcoming, but also the safest country for global sporting events. Our major initiatives are based on this whole-of-government approach, and the coordination and collaboration have already produced historic and unprecedented results. Just to highlight a few of the results: $625 million for host city in the One Big Beautiful Bill, with the emphasis on law enforcement, safety, security, overtime. Department of State visa wait times for B1, B2 visas have been dramatically reduced in the overwhelming majority of countries. And the FIFA Pass, which the president announced with, I think, your final guest today, the president of FIFA, Gianni Infantino, in the Oval Office a couple of months ago, that went live last week to tremendous results. And I can tell you it went live last week to tremendous results because you haven't heard any bad stories about it. So that's how you know that, in fact, that it has. That's one that I lost a couple years of my life in terms of making sure that that was ready to go. And then also some of the main work we've been doing around security, specifically with CUAS. We hosted a summit. Northcom, the Department of War, and the White House Task Force hosted a summit 2 weeks ago to work through federal resources, but we have been pushing $500 million in counter-UAS grants to host states and host cities, with the first $250 million designated for the National Capital Region, as well as the host states for World Cup games. On top of that, the Safer Skies Act, which was signed by the president last month, gives state and local law enforcement the authority to be able to mitigate against drones. I can tell you, in going around to all the host cities, the number one concern I heard from the normal security lead at the stadium to FIFA security to the NFL to the chief of police was mitigating against drones. And one of the main legacy items of this task force is moving forward, state and locals will have the ability to do that, not just for the World Cup, but long after the last goal is scored. Last goal scored by the United States of America, of course, by the way. Hosting the world during this historic year is a tremendous privilege and gives us a chance to show the very best of America, our hospitality, our innovation, our spirit, and ingenuity. American exceptionalism truly at its best. The FIFA World Cup is more than a sporting event. It's a moment of global unity. For 40 days, people from every corner of the world will come together, cheer together, and share in an experience that goes beyond borders and politics. Think, regardless of your background, regardless of your political persuasion, we as Americans will cheer our national team wearing that red, white, and blue. And that gives you an idea of just how great a moment of unity this World Cup can and will be. It's also an opportunity to continue to move the ball on growing soccer in the United States as we inspire the next generation of athletes, fans, and leaders. Just think of the progress that we've made from the 1994 World Cup, from sports leagues to the incredible work that has been done to continue to push soccer forward. This tournament is a rare moment when global attention shifts from world events to competition, excellence, and shared enjoyment. We're making sure that the experience is smooth, unforgettable, and safe. And our message to the world is simple. We can compete on the field while still showing American hospitality in all of our 11 host cities from coast to coast. We will do everything in our power to make these games, this tremendous World Cup, a safe and successful one. And in closing, I think about this, and you'll hear more and more about just how incredible this World Cup is going to be. But when you add FIFA with a president who understands how to host mega sporting events and believes that keeping Americans safe and fans safe, you get what is the greatest sporting event in world history, and that's going to be the 2026 FIFA World Cup. So again, thank you so much for the invitation. Wonderful seeing everybody here, and to the best sporting event in the history of the world, the World Cup. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Lindsay Sarah Krasnoff, sports diplomacy expert and clinical assistant professor at NYU, Alex Lasry, CEO at FIFA World Cup 2026 New York, New Jersey Host Committee, and Amy Hopfinger, Chief Business and Strategy Officer at FIFA World Cup 2026.
It's a pleasure to be here with everyone today. Thank you to our wonderful hosts and the entire team that have made this happen. Really excited to kick this off, so let's dive right in. Alex, Amy, I was hoping you guys could help us get a picture of the scene. FIFA World Cup 2026 is said to be the largest sporting event ever. 48 teams across 3 co-hosted nations from the Pacific to the Atlantic, a month-long of football, soccer festivities. What does this actually mean in terms of operational and diplomatic levels, particularly given the different global stakeholders involved, the international standards, and a whole host of other partners and collaborators?
Sure. Good afternoon. You know, when we set out to bid for the World Cup in 2017, we knew that this was an opportunity to do things differently, to do things on a much bigger scale. At that point, we didn't know that it was going to be an expanded World Cup. FIFA hadn't made the decision on the 48 teams, 104 matches. That came a little bit later, but the opportunity to really unite a continent, so bringing Mexico, Canada, the United States together for this opportunity was really important early on, and has proven to be an unbelievable opportunity for the tournament. We had a very competitive process, not only in winning the bid in 2018, but then also to get to our 16 host cities. So the interest, the excitement, the opportunity across the three countries was there from the beginning, and that really set the tone for how the operational pieces of this have started to come together. The government, everything from the federal, state, local level, have all needed to be coordinated. We've got three countries that need to be coordinated, three heads of state that need to be coordinated in their messaging and in their enthusiasm for what the World Cup has to bring.
I think also you're dealing with, especially in the United States, you're dealing with, 11, 12, because we're two states, and then cities and jurisdictions, right? So like each, in the U.S., you've got the federal partners, but then the state partners have a ton of influence, and the city partners have a ton of influence as well. And so I think trying to make sure that across city, state, federal, and international, right? You're now dealing with, countries coming in and playing and with all the scrutiny that then comes with. So you're kind of almost putting on a United Nations conference in 11 different cities in the U.S., and it's a big operational footprint, but I think what we've seen is, especially what we've seen in New York, New Jersey, is city, state, federal partners have all been working hand in hand to make sure that this is going to be not just a success on the pitch, but one off the pitch as well. And I think hopefully kind of creating a playbook for what is going to become this next decade of sports here in the United States, and trying to show the world that if you want to put on the best sports and entertainment event, you want to do it right here in America.
So picking up on that idea of creating a playbook, the tournament is certainly going to put North America at the epicenter of sport and diplomacy this summer. But what kinds of long-term opportunities do you already see coming out of this at this point that can benefit the co-hosts moving forward?
Well, I think what you're first trying to do is be able to show that, the scale of these kind of events are able to go off without any issues here in the U.S. And, we haven't had a World Cup in 30 years. It's been, almost 30 years since we've had an Olympics here, our Summer Olympics here in the United States. So I think what we're hoping to show in the World Cup is the kickoff to this decade of sports, right? We've got the World Cup, Summer Olympics, there's a rugby championship thrown in there, we've got the Women's World Cup, and then a Winter Olympics. I think what we want to be able to show is that it doesn't need to be another 30 years before the U.S. is hosting a World Cup. Shouldn't be another 30 years before the U.S. is hosting an Olympics. And if you want to put on an event like this that is going to be an operational success, but also the biggest, right? We are the biggest market when it comes to media, when it comes to sponsorships. We like to look at ourselves in our region as the capital of the world, and so I think it's very important to show that we can do this successfully, and we're going to be the kickoff for that. And I think you're going to see this World Cup being one that is, I think, going to draw even more international fans and excitement than any World Cup we've seen, just because it's here in the United States.
Yeah, I think it's an opportunity to meld, some of the best in the business. So America does an amazing job at entertainment and mixing entertainment and sports. That hasn't necessarily happened on the global soccer stage. We've got the opportunity to do that. We've got the opportunity on the commercial side to increase investment in the sport, increase investment in the game, which obviously happens at a very high level at the World Cup, but trickles down to all levels of the sport. So what we have the chance to do here is groundbreaking. What we have the chance to do here is set a precedent for, as Alex said, what we kicked off technically last year with the Club World Cup in a decade of major sporting events. We like to say the World Cup is the biggest sporting event in the world. We've got an opportunity to welcome the world to the United States, and sports has a chance to do that.
Well, still staying kind of at this meta level, 16 host cities, from Vancouver to Mexico City to New York. And I wonder if each of you could speak a little bit with a few hard examples for us in terms of how you're working at your different levels to create some sort of coherent fan engagement experience and tournament identity while still being true to the kind of individual flair and football cultures of all those different host cities.
Sure. This was really important to us from day one. It's one World Cup, but it's 16 host cities. And we were very purposeful when we went out with a brand. We have a very generic FIFA World Cup brand that is, very tournament focused, very trophy focused. But for the first time ever, we've got individual host city brands. That's never happened before. We really wanted an opportunity for the cities to have their own identity. And while, the game is the same on the pitch, the dimensions are the same, the grass types are the same, and things like the competition pieces of it. So for a team and a fan moving from place to place, there's similarities, but really you get the opportunity to feel like you're in New York, New Jersey, or Dallas, or Vancouver, whether it's the food that's served at the stadium, or the fan engagement, or the entertainment, or fan fest that's happening in the city. You feel like you've been to different areas, different parts of the continent.
And I think one of the great things that FIFA has been able to do is they've tried to set kind of the bigger marks of what they want, but then allowing you to put your own local flair to it. So they've kind of said, hey, we want you to have a fan fest, right? They've had that at every World Cup. They want you to have a fan fest. But where you put that fan fest, how you do it, that's on you. Like, you guys know what your community is looking for. We want people who are going to be welcome, who are coming to your shores, to get an authentic experience. So for us, we're going to have a 39-day fan engagement all across New York and New Jersey. So we've announced our Fan Fest at Liberty State Park. We've got our fan zones at Rockefeller Center and the U.S. Tennis Center. We're going to do, kind of city and state guides to make sure that people are getting the true, authentic New York, New Jersey experience. And I think that's something that is going to be unique to this World Cup that you haven't seen in others, which is, usually you've got one fan fest, right? So if the World Cup's in Germany, there's going to be one fan fest. Here, we're going to have 16 different fan fests. And I think that's something, is that right? Is that the right number?
Sure.
Yeah, 13 different fan fests
plus watch
around
parties,
there.
Viewing parties. It's not a one-size-fits-all.
Yeah, so like fan fests, and then, again, there's going to be all the regular viewing parties and the other fan zones that everyone's putting on. So I think FIFA's done a great job of trying to create the overall 30,000-foot fan experience that's going to be uniform, while also saying put on your local flair so that people can get a real sense of the community that they're in.
And just to follow up, asking you to dig a little deeper on that, to what extent, if at all, have the individual host committees been in contact with each other in terms of taking inspiration for, hey, you hear someone's doing this, oh, we could, do this, but have a different kind of spin that represents the more local on the ground, or is it just a little bit more siloed?
I mean, we talk all the time. We've got a call that we do all together once a week that's a little bit more formal, but then, we've got, text chains. I'm calling them all the time just to say, hey, we're looking at this. Have you guys experienced anything like that? Or we're planning to do this fan zone How did you guys think about yours? Or I'll read something about, what Philly or LA or, Miami's doing and say, oh, that sounds cool. Can you explain that a little bit more to me? And, and we'll take that. I think it's also important, to go see other big events and how they're going on and how they go. So like Club World Cup was a big example of just trying to kind of see, okay, what's this rhythm going to be like with FIFA when we've got the World Cup going on? I'll be going, I always joke to my wife, I have to go to the Super Bowl for work. And I have to go to the Winter Olympics for work. I know, it's brutal. But you do have to go see what the biggest events look like and try to take examples. We are in the event throwing business. The Super Bowl is the biggest event in the United States. The Winter Olympics is going to be the biggest event that happens before the World Cup. And so getting a sense of what are they doing, what's their hospitality, what's their transportation like, especially this one for me, being able to see how they go from San Francisco to Santa Clara is going to be important as we're trying to think through how do you get people from New York to New Jersey and vice versa. So talking to all the host cities, but also going to events and just kind of seeing how they work is an important part of the job. A fun part, but important part.
The knowledge exchange, for sure. And so kind of staying on this, you have a lot of conversations with different host city counterparts, but what kinds of lessons can you derive thus far in terms of the different layers of cooperation and collaboration that's been needed at the federal, state, and local partner levels to even get to where you are today?
Well, this doesn't happen without, this is going to be the largest public-private partnership probably in the country's history, right, to put this on. And so we need to make sure that our state, city, and federal partners are all working hand in hand. The president created the World Cup Task Force, which we've been able to coordinate on security measures, which have been extremely important in making sure that, these are going to be, the safest and most secure games. And then working also, again, when you look at, especially us on public transportation, right? Our transportation tracks have New Jersey Transit and Amtrak all kind of running on the same track. You've got to make sure that, if an Amtrak train goes down, what is plan B? What are we doing? How are we all in communication with each other? You got to make sure maintenance isn't happening during the World Cup because we need the tracks clear and all of that. So there's a lot of coordination between all the partners. This doesn't work without everyone working hand in hand, and it won't be successful without that constant communication. It's why the Club World Cup was such an important first kickoff. But we've been in contact with everyone for, I've been on this for a year, and I know that for a few years before. It's important to have everyone working together.
But it's also why this host committee model works and makes sense. And maybe it doesn't make sense everywhere in the world, but it was a necessity here in the US specifically, but North America at large, because we were never going to be able to walk into a city and say, we are FIFA and we need this. That's really for the host city CEOs, Alex and his counterparts, to really help us get to that place. We're here to provide experience that we've learned and knowledge that we've had from past World Cups. We're here to provide some standards and guidance so that there are standards across the 16 cities, and most importantly to coordinate across the 3 countries. But the city, state, and local piece, I really, really can't undersell, and how important it's been and how important the host committees have been to make that work.
Amy, I wonder from your perspective, you've addressed a little bit what it's like working across the different host committees. Is there anything surprising that's cropped up, or lessons that you've learned that you hadn't really expected as a result of this process so far?
Oh, there's a million. No, I think, I had the luxury of coming from the U.S. Soccer Federation, so I knew a World Cup. I've been to many World Cups. I understood both the FIFA side as well as the team side. So I had a little bit of a better understanding of the international game. And we spent a lot of time early on talking about what the World Cup was, to the extent that we were saying, this is what a soccer ball looks like, and you use your feet. Really fun conversations early on. But I think what what we've been able to try to help cities and states and communities and host committees understand is what a World Cup means in their city. They host major events all the time. They host, 16 NFL games, or 8 home NFL games this season, and they do a great job. These stadiums could run without us, which is incredible. That doesn't happen everywhere else in the world. But what does a World Cup mean in your city? What does it mean when, in Philadelphia, 10,000 Tunisian fans are marching down your street and they're lighting flares? It's maybe not as big of an issue as you might think, because they're marching peacefully and they're doing so in a way that we've organized. But from an outsider, if you didn't have that background, didn't have that understanding, that might be intimidating for law enforcement or for public officials. So it's a lot of education on what are the teams that are coming to your markets? What do these matchups mean? What does this fan group mean? And how that you can make sure that your local community, whether it's your business community, whether it's your public services, are up to speed and understand and are able to adapt to a World Cup fan versus a New York Giants or Jets fan that you get any given Sunday.
So, Alex, the final is being played at New York, New Jersey Stadium,
So I've
MetLife
heard.
Stadium.
Thank you for using that.
From your perspective, it's a fitting global stage, not just from a logistics standpoint, but also diplomatic and cultural. Could you explain a little bit why to us?
So I think just putting into perspective what a World Cup final is, if you look at the ratings for the last World Cup final, it was viewed by the same amount of people as the last 13 Super Bowls combined. So we think of the Super Bowl as the biggest sporting event in the world. You need 13 of them to equate to what is actually the biggest sporting event in the world. So if, football is America's sport, football is the world sport. And so what this is going to be is the world sport coming to the biggest media and cultural market that there is. And so you put kind of that together and you're going to have a massive event. And, when you also think about the final then being in New York, New Jersey, one of the most easily accessible places, right? You've got, every consulate's got a residence there. The United Nations is headquartered there, right? So when I talk about this is going to be like a United Nations sporting event, like that is kind of what this is going to be. And so already, getting to, and having to work with, the idea that every head of state is going to be here. And I think the thing that you don't really get until you've actually, I went to the UEFA Champions League and final. That is a different animal than kind of anything you'll see. The passion, that I'll use that word, the passion of the fans is different, but it's also from like the heads of state, right? Like they are fans of their country's team. And, while, we sometimes might have a president at a Super Bowl or something, it's not always as prolific to have our head of state at a major event. Heads of state are going to follow their country's teams throughout the World Cup. They are going to be at, their qualifying matches, et cetera. And so, we are preparing for every head of state to be at the World Cup final, or as many as that, that we think could be there. It's a massive undertaking that you also then have to remember people are also just going about their daily lives. And so how do you make sure that an event like this isn't going to too inconvenience everyone? Luckily, New York, New Jersey has dealt with big events, sporting events, United Nations, et cetera. So we kind of know how to deal with it, but it is a massive coordination effort on international relations and domestically. But I think we're up to the task.
Real quick, before I ask my last question, we talk about sports diplomacy, it's about the exchanges. What have each of you kind of been marked by in terms of an interaction with an international colleague or counterpart as a result of your FIFA 26 work?
Yeah, I think you can just look around our office and it looks like that. I can walk outside and you hear, 4 or 5, 6 different languages at the same time. We've done a really good job of thoughtfully bringing together a team that's grown from 1, which I was the first employee, to about 700, and then we'll eventually balloon to about 4,000 for the tournament. But these are individuals from all over the world. These are individuals that have worked tournaments in their home countries, or FIFA has collected along the way from experience that they've had. So, in the experience that they bring, then countered with the American colleagues that we've hired, and the experience that they bring, whether from the NFL or other leagues or from corporate America, has really given the World Cup a totally different look and a totally different feel than ever before.
I think the biggest thing for us is just kind of what a football tournament is like. And, for when I kind of started, it was like, how much different can this be, right? Only a certain amount of people can fit inside the stadium, right? Like, I don't care what event it is, right? We've done a Taylor Swift concert before. 80,000 people can fit inside MetLife Stadium. What you then learn is what makes the World Cup so unique and so different from a Super Bowl or anything like that is all the people that are coming who aren't planning to actually go inside the stadium. And that's what makes the World Cup so unique. We're going to have millions of people coming to New York, New Jersey. Only 80,000 people fit inside the stadium. So what are the other, million people going to do? They're just coming to cheer on their country. They're coming to be a part of the World Cup. And they will say, yeah, I was at the World Cup, whether they go inside the stadium or not. And I think that's what makes the World Cup such an unprecedented opportunity in the U.S. And I think it's what's going to make this so much bigger than any other World Cup is the opportunity that people are going to have to attend a World Cup in the United States, one of the most diverse nation in the world, people being able to come. And I think what's going to make a lot of this super unique is, I think unlike any other World Cup, you're going to have, Ecuador, playing in MetLife. It could feel like a home game for them, just because of the melting pot that this country is. I went to the Team USA South Korea friendly. You would have thought you were in South Korea. It was incredible what it was like, and I think that's only able to happen here, where if, another country is going to probably feel like they've got a home match.
And given that big stage, maybe big responsibility, given the geopolitical complexities, what opportunities is there for the co-hosts to lead through sport this summer?
I think, the fact that we're bringing together 48 countries, that we've got, 500 million people that have registered interest for tickets, across all 211 FIFA member associations, is testament to that. We've got an opportunity to bring people together for something that's pure entertainment. At the end of the day, the World Cup is entertainment. Sports are entertainment. But we can do really unique things and refocus people when we bring them together for things like this. So it's all about, whatever happens off the field, once the whistle blows, everyone's at the same playing field. And that's really what the sport diplomacy and the opportunity of a World Cup means to this country.
I think we're looking at this also in a couple ways. I think the first is, can this World Cup do what the Dream Team did for basketball around the world? Can this World Cup do that for football in the United States? The Dream Team led to Giannis and Dirk Nowitzki and Steve Nash and Luka Doncic. Can having Mbappe, Messi, Ronaldo here in the U.S. playing a competitive match, not a friendly, not a preseason game, but like a competitive match, can that lead to the next generation of U.S. athletes saying, I don't want to go play basketball, I want to be on the pitch, and can that turn the U.S. national team into the most dynamic team in the world? I think second is showing the world that if you want to do an event like this, you want to do it in the United States. And can we now become the centerpiece for these type of global sporting events? And I think, what we also want to be able to show is that, the United States is capable of putting on the biggest and best. And I think that is an opportunity that we have with this World Cup. I think it's one that we're going to realize. And I think it's what's going to make this World Cup incredibly successful, but I think more importantly, it's going to lead to the success of all the other sporting events that we're going to have over the next 10, 20 years.
Which I'm also obligated to mention might also entertain the Women's World Cup and, you know, certainly the heritage that they have left in the U.S. soccer field as well. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot from this, and thank you. Enjoy the rest of the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.